I saw Usher, Justin, Will, his son, LeBron. Well, I can tell you he has secret tunnels. Okay, you see JC, he's worse than...
They always say the truth hides in plain sight, but the names being whispered now are anything but subtle. Usher, Justin, Will, even LeBron. These are not just party guests, they're part of a growing storm of accusations surrounding the most notorious nights in the industry. And here's the twist, this isn't the first time we've heard these stories. This is the second leaked interview with Jonathan Oddie, recorded years after his shocking 2018 arrest. What he describes isn't just wild gossip, it's a glimpse into secret rooms, powerful figures, and nights that most celebrities would rather erase from memory.
About Diddy's pre-golf parties.
Okay, the parties, very extravagant, a lot of celebrities. They had drugs everywhere, a lot of top companies, top company CEOs there. Diddy's and his buddies shared a lot of women and even share a lot of men.
But listen to this. He insists that some of the most powerful CEOs in America were regulars at these gatherings. Executives with billion-dollar companies, caught up in nights filled with drugs, cameras, and things far darker than champagne and music. The very same CEOs who, strangely, resigned the moment Diddy faced his first legal storm. Coincidence? Or a calculated escape before the walls caved in? Then came a claim nobody expected. Trey Songz seen sitting on Diddy's lap making out with him. Jonathan said he was personally asked if he wanted to join in. That's the type of moment people usually dismiss as rumor, yet here it was, being described in detail.
They invited him to Diddy's room. He walks in. Trey Songz was sitting on Diddy's lap making out with him, and they asked him if he wanted to join.
What the f?
No, ain't no way. Ain't no way.
They're all undercover. I promise you that. I promise you that.
Now let me throw this back at you. If even half of what Jonathan is describing is true, do you think these celebrities are silent because they're protecting Diddy or protecting themselves? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading through.
Phone, so everyone knew what was happening.
And here's where it gets heavier. In one of the lawsuits filed last year, Lil Rod claimed Diddy forced him to film nearly everything. Court records back it up. Investigators confiscated 96 electronic devices when they raided his properties. 96. Not only that, they discovered 8 external hard drives with more than 90 terabytes of footage. To put that in perspective, a normal MacBook holds just 1 terabyte. Multiply that by 90, and you start to see the scale of what they were keeping. Even Cassie, in her lawsuit, mentioned that Diddy insisted on recording everything on phones. The picture forming here is disturbing. Parties full of powerful people, cameras rolling at all times, and massive digital archives waiting to be uncovered. The question isn't just why everything was filmed. The real cliffhanger is, what exactly was on those hard drives, and who was caught on camera?
What celebrities did you personally see at these parties?
I saw Usher, Justin, Will, his son, LeBron.
These weren't small names, they were household icons, and yet not one of them has publicly addressed what went on behind those closed doors. Their silence speaks louder than any denial ever could. Kevin Hart's reaction stood out. He was asked point blank about Diddy's parties during an interview, and instead of answering, he dodged the question with jokes. He laughed it off, acted confused, and quickly pivoted. For someone known to riff on anything, suddenly the jokes stopped the second Diddy's name came up.
Hey, Kev, when you hosted for Diddy, did you catch any baby oil?
You'll see,
when I hosted for Diddy, you asking the wrong person the wrong question. It's like your question.
Do you think he's safe in jail?
Wrong person, wrong question.
What Jonathan's saying lines up with a pattern. The bigger the name, the quieter they've been. People like to assume it's loyalty, but it feels more like fear. These are celebrities who normally speak on everything. Yet when it comes to Diddy, they've stayed completely silent. So you've got to ask yourself, what kind of power does one man have to keep this many people quiet for so long? And if Jonathan is right, how much darker does it get when the most famous faces in the world are part of the story?
What did you see them do at these parties?
Well, they have everyone watching in like a circle. It's like a show. Sometimes they take turns. It's very secretive. You know, Diddy only bring in certain people. You have to pass a test.
Jonathan said the real secrets didn't happen during the main event. Those were just warm-ups. The truth came after Diddy cleared the room. Hundreds of people might be there at first, but once the lights dimmed and the music shifted, only a tiny group was allowed to stay. He called it the after party, and the number was always the same, about 15 people. 15 who got to see what no one else was supposed to witness.
Yeah, put majority of the people out, but he allowed me to stay in there. Me and, you know, maybe about 15 others, you know, right. Jay-Z and Beyonce being.
Think about that. It wasn't random. You had to pass an unspoken test to prove you were trusted enough. Those left behind were the ones who mattered most to Diddy, the ones he wanted in his tightest circle. Now here's what I want to ask you. If you were one of those 15, what would you do? Stay quiet to protect your status, or risk everything by speaking out? Drop your answer in the comments, because the divide between silence and truth is where this story gets even more dangerous. Jonathan's credibility is tangled up with his own legal nightmare. He was first arrested back in 2018, and here's the strange part. 6 years later, he's still sitting in jail waiting for trial. No plea deal, no verdict, just endless delays. How does that even happen in a system that usually pushes cases through fast? And check this out, his court records show more than 300 subpoenas have been filed in connection with his case. 300, that's not normal. That's the kind of number you'd expect in a massive corporate lawsuit, not one man's criminal trial. It makes you wonder who exactly is being dragged in and what they know. Jonathan also claimed that Diddy paid him off after he tried to sue for giving him an STD. He said he received a huge amount of money in one shot and then quickly spent it. And here's where the timeline gets blurry. Around that same period, records show Diddy was buying multiple properties in cash. So the question hangs in the air. Is Jonathan just inventing stories to protect himself, or is the silence around his trial proof that too many powerful names are tied to what he knows? He painted Diddy as someone who didn't just party with artists, he owned them in every sense. One of the strangest examples he gave was Diddy's relationship with French Montana. Out of nowhere, Diddy showered him with gifts, $1 million in cash, extravagant trips, and even his own flavor of Ciroc, French vanilla. That kind of generosity doesn't happen without strings attached. Jonathan suggested it was part of Diddy's way of keeping people close, making them feel indebted. And if you look at French's career, the timing is suspicious. While he was attached to Diddy, the hits kept rolling in. Once that connection faded, the chart success did too. Even 50 Cent noticed the pattern. He openly mocked French, saying he was never relevant on his own, that his career only survived because Diddy placed him on tracks with already established stars. The moment those cosigns dried up, French's momentum collapsed. So was this friendship genuine, or just another case of Diddy buying loyalty? That's the uncomfortable part. Because for someone who was supposedly Diddy's best friend, French Montana has been dead silent since all of this came crashing down. And silence, once again, says more than words. Jonathan said being around Diddy wasn't just about parties. It was about control. Everything you did was on camera. Even on his private jet, there were cameras rolling. He claimed Diddy kept that footage as leverage, so if anyone ever refused him or spoke out, he had the ultimate weapon, evidence. One example he gave was Russell Brand. Jonathan recalled how Diddy flew him to Vegas, framing it as a holiday, but made it clear that refusing him wasn't really an option. Cameras were on, drinks were flowing, and the pressure was heavy. Brand himself once joked that going to Vegas with Diddy wasn't a success unless someone ended up in the hospital. Joking aside, it revealed the uncomfortable truth. Saying no wasn't easy. And that's the deeper issue. Gifts, trips, matching outfits, all designed to lock people in. Then when they thought they were untouchable, the cameras ensured they could never walk away clean. So here's what I want to ask you. If you knew someone had footage that could end your career, would you stay loyal to them no matter what, or risk everything by cutting ties? Let me know in the comments. This is where it gets chilling. He said Diddy wasn't satisfied with just throwing parties. He wanted every detail controlled. That's why the white parties became his trademark. Everyone had to dress the same, follow the same rules, and move to his rhythm. It wasn't fashion, it was power. When you looked around and saw hundreds of people in identical white outfits, it sent a clear message. Diddy dictated the vibe and everyone complied, but it didn't stop at clothes. Jonathan remembered Diddy insisting on buying men outfits like he was courting them, telling artists, "Let me take you shopping." For many, it felt less like generosity and more like dominance. And here's the part that sounds almost symbolic. Photos across the years show Diddy putting rappers, athletes, and even actors in headlocks. Jonathan said it was deliberate, a way to humiliate them in front of others, to remind them who had the upper hand. Look closely and you'll notice the pattern. Those who played along stayed visible in the industry. Those who pulled away seemed to fade overnight. It raises the question, were those playful headlocks just for fun, or a public signal of who was under his control? Either way, the power dynamic was impossible to miss. Jonathan claimed that Diddy's influence stretched far beyond the parties. He said, "Your career itself was shaped by how close you stayed to him. If you played along, you'd be rewarded. Hits on the charts, collaborations with top artists, doors opening everywhere. But if you pushed back, if you refused him, things shifted fast. Calls stopped coming, features dried up, and suddenly your career was invisible." Look at the pattern. While artists partied with Diddy, they were everywhere. Radio, tours, TV appearances. But once they stepped away, the spotlight dimmed. Jonathan called it the ultimate trade-off, fame in exchange for silence. And once again, the cameras made sure nobody forgot what they owed. That's the kind of power most people can't imagine. Not just influence, but leverage strong enough to keep celebrities and executives alike in line. So here's what I want to ask you. Do you think Diddy really had the power to make or break entire careers? Or were these artists simply benefiting from the association and fading naturally when it ended? I'm curious to hear your take. Drop your opinion in the comments below. And remember, Jonathan's story only gets darker the deeper he goes. He pointed out that what most people saw was only the surface. Beneath the mansions and the bright lights, there were secret tunnels, hidden rooms, and underground passages that connected to other estates. He insisted that's where the most disturbing things happened, places only accessible with codes, far from cameras or outsiders. He described it like an initiation process. New artists and rising celebrities were allegedly led into these spaces, forced into humiliating situations, and told it was the price of success. It echoed what other rappers have hinted at for years, that hazing and rituals are part of the industry ladder. Just like fraternities on college campuses, except here the stakes were millions of dollars and global fame. Some even claimed those tunnels reached all the way to the Playboy Mansion, though there's no proof to back that up. Still, the imagery is chilling. Secret doors, no clear exits, and people left in rooms with no idea how to get out. Jonathan's words were blunt. The lower you go, the harder it is to escape, which raises the most haunting question yet. How many careers were built not just on talent, but on what happened underground when no one else was watching? When Jonathan was asked who he saw going into those tunnels, one name stunned everyone: Will Smith. And not just Will, but his son as well. For years, rumors have circled about why Jaden left home so young and why certain family moments seemed fractured. Jonathan's story poured fuel on that fire. Jaguar Wright and even Will's former assistant have made cryptic comments about things Jaden went through, hinting at darker truths behind closed doors. Nothing has ever been proven, but Jonathan's claim lined up with what others have suggested, that Will wasn't just a guest, he was deeply involved. What shocked Jonathan most was the difference between Will's public image and the way he acted when cameras weren't around. He described him as two-faced, warm, and friendly in front of an audience, but cold and aggressive when no one was watching. Chris Rock once joked about Will's temper, but Jonathan made it sound far from a joke. If what he's saying is even partially true, it rewrites how people see one of Hollywood's most beloved figures. And the silence from those closest to Will only adds to the unease. The question is, what else is buried that nobody dares to say out loud? By the end of the leaked interview, Jonathan wasn't just pointing at parties anymore. He was throwing bombs. He claimed Jay-Z plotted to push Biggie out of the way, hinted that Aaliyah's death wasn't an accident, and even accused Kanye of sharing tapes with Diddy. None of this has ever been proven, but the sheer scale of what he described left viewers reeling. And that's the key here. These are allegations, not courtroom evidence. Still, if even a fraction holds truth, it would explain why so many celebrities stay silent, because speaking up could burn the entire industry down. But here's where things take a sharp turn. As wild as Jonathan's interview was, it's only half the story. Because while these old claims resurface, Diddy himself has been plotting his own moves. And one name keeps coming up again and again: 50 Cent. For years, 50 has mocked him, exposed him, and pushed every button he could. Now insiders say Diddy is vowing revenge, determined to hit back harder than ever after beating his case. That's the next chapter. If you want to see how this feud is boiling over right now, the story continues in the next video. I'll meet you there.